The rain had barely ceased when the Whitmore family's carriage rolled through the gates of Hawthorne Grange. The estate stood silent amidst the rolling fields of Somerset, its windows glinting with a melancholy gleam. Oliver Whitmore, the eldest son at 17, pressed his face to the misted glass, eager yet uneasy at the sight of their new home. The manor, with its ivy-clad stone walls and crooked chimneys, carried the kind of weight that silence alone could not explain. Eleanor Whitmore, his mother, clasped her shawl tighter around her shoulders as they stepped out, whispering that the place looked as though it had been waiting for them all along. Inside, the air was colder than the autumn wind. Dust lay heavy upon the oak banisters, and the vast hall echoed with every footfall. Portraits of long-departed Hawthornes stared down from the walls, their eyes painted with secrets that seemed almost alive. That first night, the family gathered before a struggling fire in the drawing room. Oliver, restless and curious, wandered the halls alone. His candle flickered as he passed the library, its door half open, as though beckoning him in. He pushed the door, and the scent of forgotten paper filled the air. Rows of shelves towered above him, and high in the rafters he heard the faintest shuffle, like a whisper of movement, though the room was empty. He shook it off and turned back, yet could not help but feel the library had taken notice of him. When he rejoined his parents, Eleanor remarked that she had heard something too, a faint tapping in the ceiling above the drawing room. Mr. Whitmore dismissed it as nothing but mice. But as the wind howled across the moors and the fire sank low, Oliver lay awake in his new chamber. Just before sleep overcame him, he heard it, 3 distinct knocks, muffled, coming from somewhere within the manor walls. And with each knock, it felt as though the house itself was answering a call that had been waiting for generations. Morning light crept through the tall windows of Hawthorne Grange, casting pale shafts across the dusty floorboards. Oliver had barely slept. The sound of those knocks lingered in his mind, like a secret begging to be uncovered. During breakfast, Eleanor asked again about the noises, but Mr. Whitmore insisted it was only the settling of the old house. Oliver, however, noticed how his mother's spoon trembled slightly in her hand, as if she already distrusted the silence around them. That afternoon, restless, Oliver explored the upper corridors. The walls narrowed, the air grew colder, and at the very end of a shadowed hallway he found a small door, half hidden behind a tapestry. Its handle was stiff, and when he forced it open, a breath of stale air rushed past him. A staircase wound upwards into the attic. Each step creaked beneath his weight. Cobwebs clung to his sleeves as he pushed his way into the gloom. The attic stretched like a forgotten world, trunks piled high, broken furniture, and dust so thick it softened every shape. In the far corner stood a chest, darker than the rest, its iron lock snapped long ago. With cautious hands, Oliver lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in brittle paper, lay a bundle of old letters tied with a faded ribbon. The ink was blurred, but the handwriting was elegant and urgent, each page marked with dates from more than a century past. As he unfolded the first, he froze. The letter was not merely a diary of affection, it spoke of betrayal, of forbidden meetings in the orchard behind the manor, and of a promise never fulfilled. The writer, whose name was signed only as A, pleaded for escape from a marriage arranged in cruelty. The paper crackled as he turned it over. There, in hurried strokes, the final words struck him cold. If I vanish, know that the truth lies within these walls. A floorboard groaned behind him. Oliver spun around, heart pounding, but the attic appeared empty. Yet he knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that he was no longer alone. The day waned quickly, clouds gathering thick above the Somerset fields. That evening, as the lamps flickered in their sconces, Oliver slipped into the library once more, the bundle of letters hidden beneath his coat. He could not tell his parents, not yet. Something in those pages felt dangerous to speak aloud. The room smelled of wax and damp leather, the silence so deep it pressed against his ears. Oliver laid the letters on a table, spreading them carefully. Each one hinted at a forbidden bond, at a secret romance buried in deceit. But one detail returned again and again, the orchard behind the manor. A place where shadows seemed to linger even by day. He bent closer, tracing the faded words, when he heard it, a whisper, soft as breath, drifting from between the shelves. He turned, candle trembling in his grip. Oliver. The voice was no louder than a sigh, yet it spoke his name with dreadful intimacy. He stepped back, knocking into the table, the candlelight casting monstrous shapes across the bindings of books. No one was there. Only the rows of tomes, ancient and unyielding. Yet when he returned his gaze to the letters, his heart jolted. The ribbon had come undone, though he had not touched it. The final envelope lay open, its page fluttering though no wind stirred. He read, his breath shallow, "Trust no kin, for blood betrays faster than any stranger. If you seek me, look beneath the orchard stone." The whisper came again, stronger now, curling around him from every corner of the room. Oliver stumbled towards the door, clutching the letters. He fled into the hall, where the firelight burned steady and safe. But at the threshold he froze. Eleanor stood there, pale as ivory, her eyes fixed not on him but on the papers in his hand. And though her lips never moved, he heard her voice as clear as if it were spoken aloud. "Where did you find those, Oliver?" The following morning dawned grey, the mist clinging low across the grounds of Hawthorne Grange. Oliver rose early, the weight of the letters pressing against his chest as though they were alive. His mother's pale face from the night before haunted him. She had not mentioned the letters again at breakfast, yet her silence spoke louder than any question. Drawn by the words, "beneath the orchard stone," Oliver slipped outside once the household settled. The orchard stretched behind the manor, its ancient trees gnarled and twisted, branches stripped bare by autumn. The air smelled of damp earth and rotting fruit. He wandered through the rows, his boots crunching against fallen leaves, until he saw it, a flat slab of stone at the orchard's edge, darker than the soil around it. Moss crept over its surface, as though nature itself had tried to bury it deeper. Kneeling, Oliver brushed the moss away with trembling fingers. The stone bore no mark, no carving. Yet when he pressed his ear to it, he thought he heard something, a hollow resonance beneath, like the chamber of a hidden vault. He glanced over his shoulder, uneasy. The manor loomed through the fog, its windows glinting faintly. For a moment, he thought he saw a figure watching from the upper rooms, but when he blinked, the shape was gone. Summoning courage, Oliver fetched a rusted spade from the gardener's shed and returned. He struck the earth beside the stone, the soil wet and heavy. Each shovelful sank deeper until the spade hit something solid. He crouched and clawed at the dirt with his hands until a corner of wood appeared. A box, blackened with age, its lid swollen by damp. With effort, he dragged it free, mud coating his sleeves. The lock crumbled to dust at his touch. Inside lay a collection of objects wrapped in cloth. He unrolled the first and recoiled. It was a woman's glove, stiff with age and stained dark at the wrist. Beneath it, a silver locket glimmered faintly, its surface scratched. He opened the locket, and his breath caught. Inside was a miniature portrait of a young woman, her eyes painted bright and sorrowful. On the back, faintly etched, was a single initial, A. Before he could study it further, a sound shattered the silence, the crunch of footsteps behind him. Oliver spun around, clutching the locket tight. Through the fog, a shadow moved between the trees, watching, waiting, drawing closer. The mist curled thick around the orchard, swallowing every branch and path. Oliver's grip tightened on the locket as the shadow drew nearer. From the haze emerged Mr. Hargrove, the old groundskeeper, his lantern swaying in his hand. His eyes, sharp beneath his weathered brow, fixed on the box at Oliver's feet. "You shouldn't have opened that, lad," Hargrove said, his voice rough as gravel. "Some things are best left buried." Oliver stepped back, his pulse quickening. "These belonged to someone called A. Do you know who she was?" The groundskeeper's lantern light caught the glint of the locket. His expression hardened, and for a moment he looked older than the earth itself. Alicia Hawthorne, he muttered at last. She vanished from this place more than 100 years ago. They said she ran away with a lover, but I've always known that was a lie. The wind stirred the branches, and the mist seemed to whisper her name. Alicia. Oliver swallowed hard. What happened to her? Hargrove shifted, his boots sinking into the damp soil. The Hawthorns were a proud family. Too proud. Secrets were their trade. And Alicia, she threatened to unravel them all. The orchard has held its silence ever since. Oliver opened his mouth to press further, but the old man raised a hand, his lantern trembling. Listen to me. You've put yourself in danger. The house knows you've found the truth. And so does someone else. At that moment, the manor bell tolled from the tower, its chime echoing across the grounds though no hand had touched the rope. Hargrove's eyes darted toward the sound, his face drained of color. Go back inside, boy, he whispered urgently. Lock your door. And whatever you do, do not trust the ones who share your blood. The lantern light guttered as the mist pressed close. Oliver glanced back at the box, at the glove and locket that seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. When he looked up again, Hargrove was gone, as if the fog had swallowed him whole. And from the open windows of the manor, he thought he saw someone watching, their gaze fixed directly upon him. That night, the manor seemed restless. The shutters rattled though the wind had stilled, and the corridors carried whispers that vanished the moment Oliver turned his head. He locked his chamber door, as Hargrove had warned, but sleep would not come. The letters and the locket lay hidden beneath his pillow, heavy with secrets. Near midnight, a soft knock echoed against his door. 3 times. The same sound he had heard his first night at Hawthorne Grange. Oliver, came a hushed voice. It was his sister, Margaret. Please, open. I must speak with you. He hesitated, hand frozen above the latch. Hargrove's warning rang in his ears, do not trust the ones who share your blood. Still, he lifted the bolt. Margaret slipped inside, her face pale, her hands trembling as though she too had been listening to the whispers in the dark. I know about the letters, she whispered, eyes darting toward the pillow. I saw you in the library. Mother saw you too. You must be careful, there are things you don't understand. Oliver's breath caught. Then tell me. What do you know of Alicia Hawthorne? Margaret shook her head, clutching her shawl tight. Her story is forbidden. They say she betrayed the family. But I don't believe it. I think she was betrayed instead. And if you've found her letters, it means the truth is rising again. Someone in this house will not allow that. Before Oliver could reply, the door creaked open. Their mother, Eleanor, stood in the threshold, her shadow long and dark across the floorboards. Her eyes gleamed in the candlelight, unreadable. So, she said softly, her voice laced with steel, you have both seen too much. Oliver's heart thundered. The warnings, the whispers, the fear in Margaret's eyes, it all fell into place. It was not some ghost in the orchard he had to fear. It was the blood within his own house. Morning brought no peace. Oliver avoided his mother at breakfast, though her eyes followed him with the weight of unspoken threats. Margaret sat silent, pale as the milk in her cup, her hands trembling when she lifted her spoon. The family spoke of trivial things, estate accounts, parish news, yet an invisible current of dread coiled beneath every word. When the meal ended, Oliver slipped away into the east wing, a place long neglected. The shutters were thick with dust, and faded curtains hung like shrouds. He had not intended to enter, but something, a whisper, or perhaps instinct, drew him deeper into the gloom. At the end of the corridor stood a locked door. The key, strangely, was already in the lock. He turned it, and the hinges groaned as though resisting him. Inside, the chamber was lined with portraits. Generations of Hawthorns stared down, their painted eyes sharp and watchful. But one canvas, draped with a moth-eaten cloth, called to him. He pulled the fabric away, and gasped. It was the face from the locket. The same piercing eyes, the same determined set of the mouth. Alicia Hawthorne. The forbidden name. Yet what chilled Oliver most was not her likeness. It was the way the paint had been slashed across her chest, as if someone had tried to erase her from memory. Behind him, the door creaked shut. A voice whispered from the shadows. You should not have found her. Oliver spun around, only to see a figure step forward, someone he had trusted since his first night at the manor. The figure stepped fully into the light, and Oliver's breath caught. It was Margaret. His sister, pale and trembling, yet her eyes glowed with a strange determination. You should not have found her, she repeated, voice quivering yet firm. I tried to keep you away. I tried to protect you. But now it is too late. Oliver's heart hammered. Protect me. From what? Margaret lifted her hand. In it was a folded letter, the last of the hidden bundle. She pressed it to his chest. From the truth. Alicia was not only our ancestor, she was betrayed, murdered, and buried in silence. And the one who struck her down was of our own blood. The words froze Oliver in place. The portraits seemed to lean closer, listening. But why hide it? Why let the family rot under this silence? Margaret's voice cracked. Because the blood that killed her still runs in us. Mother knows. She would do anything to keep the name untarnished. Even destroy you if you speak of it. At that moment, the door burst open. Their mother stood there, her face ashen, her hands clenched into fists. Enough, she hissed. The past must remain buried. Oliver felt the weight of the letter in his hand, the whispers of the portraits rising like a storm around him. He glanced at Margaret, tears spilling down her cheeks, then back at his mother, whose eyes burned with desperate fury. In that suspended moment, Oliver understood, the secrets of Hawthorne Grange were not mere echoes of history. They lived still, dangerous and unbroken, and his next choice would decide whether the truth would finally rise, or be silenced forever. And in the silence that followed, the portraits whispered once more, louder than ever before.